everybody, I'm here today with my husband, and we're here to tell you about how we healed one of our friends.
My friend.
Well, we both know him. We live in Texas, and this man lives in Missouri. And he had called up my husband one night, and he was telling him how he had a lump on his shoulder. Do you want to kind of tell a story about it?
Yeah, so I got this random text message one night, it was kind of midday, saying that he had been in the emergency room starting really early that morning until, I don't know, been there about 7-8 hours, he said. And he had excruciating pain in his back, kind of towards one side of his shoulder. And they had done 2 CAT scans, one without dye and one with dye, and said that there was a mass on the upper part of his left lung, and the mass had showed up in both of the CAT scans. And so he was calling me because in the past we had done some prayer groups, if you will, for other people up there in that area, and so I could just sense that he was in desperation. And so I said, would you like me to do a really intense prayer group for you? I said it that way because, in my mind I was thinking putting a group of people together to meditate for his well-being, but he wasn't aware of what we're doing in meditation, and so I just used that terminology because he would understand that, and he was 100% open to it and was very appreciative and thankful during this phone call when I offered it. And immediately after I offered, he just said, "Kyle, I believe this thing can just go away." And it kind of caught me by surprise, but I think I just told him right after that, I was like, well, good, because that's what it's going to take, is you believe. And so I think this was 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that, and we were having a really busy day that day. But I remember coming home and asking my wife, I said, hey, told her the story, do you want to put a remote healing group together? And she of course was like, yeah, what time? And I said, well, I think sometime between 8 and 9 o'clock would work the best. So just to keep the story kind of brief, I called a couple of other people that we had recently met at Dispenza events, and there was essentially 2 people in Chicago, 1 person in North Houston, and then us 2 here, South Texas. So all spread out around, and we all just coordinated our meditation time, non-Zoom call or anything. We just had texted everyone and said, hey, at this time, meditate on this particular person, and I had sent a picture of this man, and they knew where he was located. And so we all meditated. I think it was at 9 o'clock. And we always, whenever we do this, and we've done it just a few other times, but whenever we do this afterwards, we like to speak with those people that we've invited to be a part of the remote healing meditation, because it seems like there are visuals and feelings and different things of that nature that the remote healers will experience, and it's just a lot of fun. I would think it's fun. I mean, you're meditating intently on healing the subject person, right? So you've got a lot of love in your heart, and sometimes a lot of tears for that person. But I say fun because it's just so exciting. I know for me, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for my wife too, it's just exciting to have the ability to help people and to share in the joint experiences with the other remote healers. And I know I've felt and seen things, Cheryl has felt and seen things, and sometimes we have the same exact experience, but we don't know it until afterwards when we talk about it. So to kind of continue the story, so this all happened at 9 o'clock, and just for the sake of the story, let's say it was a Tuesday during the week, and he went to go, so like that, well, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, so I told him just lay down on the bed. I texted him, I said, we're going to be doing this prayer group, and I just want you to be really calm. You can either sit in your recliner or lay down in your bed and just try to feel the love coming to you. And so I talked to him the next day, probably around 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, And I could just tell by his voice he was in a super good mood. And so I kind of asked him, I said, well, what did you do? And he said, well, I just laid down in bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock. And he started to get kind of cold because he said he was just laying on top of the bed. So he asked his wife to bring a blanket. And shortly thereafter, he said he just fell asleep. But then when he woke up in the morning, and he's a pretty early riser naturally, I think it was around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, he woke up. He said he felt a ice cold sensation under his left shoulder, like there was an icy hot pack there, but there wasn't. There was nothing there, he said. And he said the pain was gone. He could breathe. When he had the pain, every time he breathed in, it would hurt really bad, he said, and so he would breathe shallower so it wouldn't hurt, and anytime he coughed, it would hurt. And now he said at that point the pain was all gone. I was like, wow, holy crap. I'm like, that's awesome. But in my mind, I believed we could heal him, but I guess part of my limiting belief was that it might take 2 or 3 times. Since he's not a meditator, maybe this wouldn't be as effective. But it was one time.
It was one time. Can I share my experience a little bit?
Yeah.
So whenever we went to do the meditation, he was out on the back porch and I was in the bedroom, so we weren't even near each other. And we had still had one of the files from the healing meditation from one of the events we went to, so we just kind of played that and some music afterwards to kind of help prepare us and everything. And I sensed him laying down. Like, we did the whole thing, rubbing our hands together, and like sensed him. And it's amazing how you can just really feel, you can find him. You can find somebody out in the universe. And that was just such an amazing feeling. And I sensed him laying down. And then at one point, I sensed him coughing a whole bunch. And so then, it was all over and whatever. And we talked to the different people that were involved in the healing. And we talked to Kevin too, and I was really hoping he would say I was coughing, and he didn't, so I was like, I wonder what I was sensing. But then we talked to the gentleman that was helping us from North Houston, and he said there was one point in there that I felt all this anger coming up, and I just started coughing uncontrollably. So I was just shocked, because I was like, so it was like both him and I were sensing this man coughing, but he was coughing for him.
It was like channeling.
Yeah,
that
and I
emotion.
sensed Kevin coughing, but it was really him coughing. So something was coming out, but we were sensing it. But Kevin just, you said he felt like coldness or something like that.
Well, that was the only thing he said he felt was the coldness in his shoulder. But that very next morning, he had said that the pain was completely gone. Yeah. And he mentioned that he was still going to go see the pulmonologist, I guess, which is like a lung doctor. And I really didn't know what to tell him. I just was kind of like, yeah, because I didn't want to tell him not to go. And I was kind of nervous that if he did go and the mass was still there, that it would, because I was so excited that he had found healing, and so I was kind of juggling this in my own head. But all I said to him was like, okay, just kind of went on to the next subject of the conversation. And so I think it was like the next day.
I think it was a week later that he finally went.
Well, I was just going to say the next day I called him again just to check up on him because I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And he was the same.
He said he felt 20 years younger, right?
Well, he had said that even on that day. He's just like, I feel 20 years younger. And I think the next day he's like, I'm feeling kind of frisky, trying to go get in trouble or something like that. I was like, wow. And then...
we haven't said how old he is. He's... What, 60s?
I would say early 60s,
okay,
and been smoking for cigarettes for 40 years, he said. And so finally the day comes and he goes and sees the pulmonologist, and this is where it gets kind of crazy. So I want to say it very succinctly so everybody can kind of follow along, because even I was confused until I asked him again to clarify. So he goes and sees the pulmonologist, which is a specialist. And typically when you go see a specialist the first time, they really just review your data and your medical file history from other office visits and other treatments, right? And then they'll schedule something additional should they see it necessary. So at this particular appointment with the pulmonologist, he's really just reviewing the 2 different CAT scans from the emergency room. And what he told Kevin, and Kevin tells me, is that he goes, Kyle, or Kevin, he's like, there's nothing on these CAT scans. And his wife is there. His wife is just irate, thinking medical malpractice. Kevin is just laughing because he knows what we basically did for him, his belief and everything. And so my wife and I, when I shared the news to her, we were both like, what just happened?
I had to verify with him because he said the lump is gone.
Correct.
And then they looked at I heard Kevin say that the previous 2 scans, and I don't think it registered with Kyle, and I had to verify. He said the previous 2 scans showed no lump. And Kyle, and you were just like, yeah. But I said, okay, wait a second. The scans you had done a week ago showed nothing on them. And he said, that's correct. So the 2 scans, it's like it never even happened. And his words were, I think the nurse said, it's like something was rewired, or did he say something was rewired? But he used the word rewired, which I thought was really interesting. It was just like, it was like something was rewired, like it never even happened. So I was speechless.
Well, yeah, I remember looking at you and you were looking at me, and we kind of got teary-eyed, and we were just like,
I
wow.
was like, my jaw was just like, it was like the doctor do. It was like,
yeah, well, and needless to say, he has just been so happy every time I talk to him, and I could just hear it in his voice. He still has other little aches and pains that he used to have. We were kind of thinking maybe some of those might have gone away too, but still, just based on everything I had heard, I was just so scared that he had lung cancer. And for all we know,
it could have
been
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so now his scans are completely clean. But the funniest and coolest part is he said the doctor, the pulmonologist, at the end of reviewing his emergency room files, basically showing him that they're free and clear of anything. And again, to repeat, these are the ones that were taken the day before we meditated for him, and he was in immense pain, and they said there's a lump there. This same doctor at the same visit turns and asks Kevin if he was a smoker, and Kevin's like, yes, and how long have you been smoking? And he told him almost, I think he said right at 40 years, and the doctor just shook his head and was like, that is amazing. You've got the cleanest lungs I've ever seen for a smoker. And
I think he said they were cleaner than somebody who doesn't smoke, I think was his words.
It's been
Something
a little
like
bit since he told me, but yeah, still the point is that,
not only did his lump disappear, the past got erased, and his lungs for a smoker got cleaner than average person. So
yeah, I just have to say it's so cool being able to help people like that.
And I told my husband, I said, I wish I had his belief. That's all it took for him. One belief. You go to these events and you have people that have been meditating for years and they can't cure themselves of some illness. You have some guy that doesn't even know about Dr. Joe or meditating or healing or anything, and he just says, I believe this thing can just disappear. We send him some love and it disappears.
Completely.
I was like,
rewrites history.
I want that. I want to have that belief.
Yeah. Well, I know you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
It's like we can believe that we can heal other people, but we can't heal ourselves.
I know.
And I don't understand. Well, that'll be definitely another topic, just talking about how what are our limiting beliefs. But anyway, we just really wanted to share that testimonial of our ability to help through the universe's guidance another soul. And I do know we spoke with the other healers that had helped us, and they were just flabbergasted, in a good kind of a way that, wow, we did this, as a collective, and now there's a person out there that has a new lease on life. Pretty cool.